Welcome to the important news of Afghanistan on Thursday, June 26th, 2025. The Council of Deputy Heads of Afghanistan's political and consular missions has called the violent behavior of a man against an Afghan child in Russia a barbaric act. In a statement, the Council has asked the Russian government to seriously investigate the matter and punish those responsible. A video clip shared on social media shows a man slamming an Afghan child to the ground at Moscow airport. According to reports, as a result of this attack, the child suffered serious physical injuries and his spine was broken. Russian officials have announced that a 31-year-old man from Belarus was arrested at the international airport in Moscow after attacking the child. This video has received widespread attention on social media, with users calling the behavior brutal. Sheremetyevo Haqqani, the Taliban's Minister of Interior, has admitted that it is possible some members of the group may have secretly taken revenge on officials and authorities of the previous government. At a meeting with government officials and families of martyrs in Kapisa, Haqqani emphasized that the Taliban administration does not allow its members to violate the rights of others, and those who have sought revenge will be accountable to God. At this meeting, the Taliban's Minister of Interior described the group's authority as being in a period of divine trial and asked officials to treat people in a way that does not tarnish the reputation of the Taliban regime. He also claimed that the Taliban regime represents religion, Sharia, and the martyrs, emphasizing that the strength of the regime and providing services to the people are a divine trust, and officials must fulfill this responsibility with complete sincerity. This comes as the Taliban have announced a general amnesty, but the United Nations has repeatedly reported that the group has not adhered to this commitment and has arrested, tortured, and put at risk of being killed a number of former military personnel and government employees. The Women and Children's Research and Advocacy Network announced in a report titled The Impact of Taliban Decrees on Women and Girls in Afghanistan that after the Taliban took control, more than 90% of women in Afghanistan lost their minds. This research shows that the Taliban's restrictive decrees have led to widespread violence and deprived women of all aspects of public life. According to the findings of this research, which was conducted between October 2024 and March 2025 in the provinces of Kabul, Herat, Badakhshan, Wardak, Ghazni, Nangarhar, Bamyan, Ghor, and Logar, 98.5% of Afghan citizens supported the right of girls to education and schooling. Additionally, 36% of women have experienced various forms of violence, psychological, economic, physical, and sexual, and another 65.4% of women have experienced violence in general. The study also shows that 95% of women are deprived of the right to travel without a male guardian and to use public transportation. In conclusion, the Women and Children Research and Advocacy Network has called for increased international pressure on the Taliban and for gender apartheid to be recognized as a crime against humanity. On the International Day Against Drug Abuse, the European Union delegation in Afghanistan has emphasized the fight against addiction. On Thursday, June 25th, the Union stated that it is working with its partners to reduce the demand for drugs and to provide sustainable livelihoods. The Union has stated, "We are helping thousands of Afghans to cope with addiction and mental disorders so that they can become empowered and valuable assets for their society and the country's economy." Last year, the Taliban announced that 3 million people in Afghanistan are addicted to drugs, with about 40% of them being women. Meanwhile, Afghanistan is facing widespread challenges in the production and consumption of narcotics. Regarding how the Taliban are combating drugs, Mr. Mohammed Naeem Gair, a political and security analyst, told Zarin World Television.
With great regret, Afghanistan, the country we are witnessing, is facing various challenges. And this goes back to the fact that, unfortunately, Afghanistan, whether during the Republic era or with the arrival of the Taliban, The Taliban Emirate has never had good governance in any way, and the lack of good governance in Afghanistan has caused the country and its people to face various challenges. One of the biggest challenges facing Afghan society is the scourge of drug production, trafficking, and addiction. Although, according to the statistics announced by the Taliban, supposedly 3 million people in Afghanistan are addicted to drugs. But certainly, those inside Afghanistan who hear my voice know this. They will surely agree with me that the number of addicts across the 34 provinces of Afghanistan is much higher, more than 5 million, maybe 6 or even 7 million. And there are no accurate statistics in any area, including about the number of addicts. Unfortunately, it is a very serious problem in Afghan society that has led to the collapse of families, and on the other hand, every month, hundreds of these addicts die due to cold, heat, hunger, and other diseases they face. Therefore, this is a very serious challenge, and in the current situation where Afghanistan is under Taliban rule, there is absolutely no hope that Afghanistan can overcome this challenge or other challenges until a legitimate, responsible, and compassionate government and system is established.
Afghan women activists and political figures, in a meeting with officials from the United Arab Emirates, called for practical and political support from the UAE for women's rights in Afghanistan. At this meeting, representatives of Afghan women asked the UAE's special envoy for Afghanistan to consider women's demands in his diplomatic talks with the Taliban group. Issues such as girls' education, women's employment, access to home medical services, and participation in political dialogues were among the key points being pursued. These women warned that the fundamental rights of women in Afghanistan have been severely restricted, and they called on United Arab Emirates, which has close ties with the Taliban and plays an active role in regional talks, to prioritize Afghan women's interests when shaping its policies toward the Taliban. What is the role and influence of Arab countries over the Taliban? Dr. Fard Yunus comments on this.
Yes, I send my greetings and love to all of you and your listeners and viewers, and I thank you for inviting me to say a few brief words about the role of Arab and Muslim countries regarding women's rights in Afghanistan. Their role can be very active because, in Islam, there is no discrimination between men and women, and the few verses that have been mentioned in the Holy Quran, when explained properly, are not against women. And in Islam, from a civil perspective, such as education, marriage, business, travel, and all these matters, the rights of men and women are equal. Therefore, the actions and behaviors that the Taliban are carrying out in Afghanistan today are against Islamic Sharia and the Islamic human rights that were signed in Paris in 1981, as well as against international human rights. We hope that before the 14th or 15th of August, which marks 4 years, our Afghan sisters, women, and girls who have been deprived of their right to education for 4 years, as well as journalists and the media who have been deprived of their right to freedom of expression and speech, will regain their rights. And the Quran says, the knowledge of expression and the knowledge of the pen, meaning, I have taught you the knowledge of speech and the knowledge of writing. For this reason, it is very important for us that all aspects of Islamic and international human rights are taken into consideration in Afghanistan, and Arab countries can play an active role, especially by not recognizing the Taliban. I thank you, and I wish you a pleasant program. Fard Yunus from California.
End of the news.